Thanks a lot for joining us today. We are the MIKTA countries, and thanks to our global platform, the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, we came together and prepared a report to understand the specific opportunities, challenges, policy recommendations of each country. Here you see we are Mexico, Indonesia, Republic of Korea, Turkey, and Australia. Of course, when we set to do this, we got endless support from the Turkish Foreign Ministry. We would like to thank them once again, and our ambassador, Ms. Altu, is with us today. In short notice, we will also hear her comments and perspective about this wonderful side event that we are realizing as a part of MIKTA's Turkey term presidency this year. And as I said, we prepared the report, and when we set out to prepare the report, we were expecting really wild differences between the countries, you know, because we are geographically set apart. We are living in different cultures, different economic, social, political realities. But it turned out that most of the opportunities, most of the challenges, and even the policy recommendations turned out to be almost identical. So that was a surprise for us, and it also encouraged us to, you know, elevate this side event into a sustainable, long-lasting venture and to strengthen further the relationship between these 5 G20 countries, these strategic partners. So on that regard, we decided to meet periodically from now on. I hope we can manage that. And in those meetings, we will update each other and just look for new opportunities. Other than that, we are also planning to review and update the report that we have just prepared, which just gives a global perspective. Then each country has its separate page where you can see the recent trends in impact investing and the opportunities, challenges, and policy recommendations. We are aiming at keeping it rather updated, at least annually we can do that, I guess. And one thing more important maybe than all of these is that we, as the Turkish National Advisory Board, UIDK, we are committing to establish a MIKTA chair, a MIKTA board in our one of our working groups. We have this working group called Impact Partnerships, and this was a team and a structure that we have dreamed of for the past 2 years actually, and it's an honor that we are realizing first example with the MIKTA platform and our colleagues in these 4 other different and wonderful, valuable countries. And within this desk that we are going to establish under our working group, we will have hopefully periodical meetings, convenings, webinars, knowledge exchanges, networking. And we, as the Secretariat of the Turkish National Advisory Board, are committed to make it a lively and impactful desk. So here today we are together with, as I said, our president, Şafak Müderriskil at the Turkish National Advisory Board side. We have our ambassador and the general director for the multilateral economic relations at the Turkish Foreign Ministry, Ms. Altu. We also have our colleagues, David from Australia, Caroline from Mexico, we have Chul from Korea, we have Romy from Indonesia, and we also have our master moderator, the chief policy officer of the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, Sebastian. So this is a wonderful bunch, and not to keep it any longer, I just leave the floor to our Turkish National Advisory Board's president, Ms. Müderriskil.
Thank you, Onur. I would like to, it's my pleasure to welcome you all. I assume we have participants from all over the world coming from different continents today. So thank you for those who could make it today, no matter what the time zone is? Well, it's a proud day for all of us. As the Turkish National Advisory Board, we have become the latest member of GSG in March this year. And just in the same month, Turkey has taken over the term presidency of MIKTA platform, which stands out as a perfect ground for collaboration among MIKTA countries. So it was March when we started to communicate with our Foreign Affairs Ministry to see if we could carve out a joint project with MIKTA country national advisory boards with the support of GSG. And then it was the GSG leaders meeting in Italy when we as the MIKTA country national advisory boards came together for the first time to discuss this. So Mexico, Indonesia, South Korea, Turkey and Australia national advisory boards started to work on it, and it took us approximately 6 months to put this report together with our colleagues and with the support of GSG. The report is a preliminary reference reflecting the current status and intended targets of impact investing in MIKTA countries and paves the way for making new policies throughout their governments, as well as collaborations within the MIKTA platform. So this is the first MIKTA report produced among national advisory boards with the support of GSG. And at the end of the report, you will see our pledge. You will observe our joint pledge to come together, to work together, and to update the report periodically. Such collaboration is key that we value the most. As the Turkish National Advisory Board, we will always be committed to be in collaboration with our partners in developing the report, the content of the report in the coming terms. Finally, on behalf of the Turkish National Advisory Board, EYDK, I would like to thank GSG, particularly the policy team, for their endless support in helping us to put the report together. And of course, a big thank you goes to our counterparts, the National Advisory Boards of Mexico, Indonesia, South Korea, Australia, for their collaboration and patience to put all this together. In a few minutes, we are going to have a very rich and diverse panel discussion. So thank you, Seb, Carolina, Romy, Chul, David, and Onur for making it. And finally, we are grateful to the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Turkey for giving us the ground from day one to make all this happen. It's my pleasure to present our keynote speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador Esen Altuğ. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from Ankara. Distinguished participants, I would like to thank, of course, first to the Impact Investing Advisory Board of Turkey, and at the same time, the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, GSG, and all the related bodies in MIKTA countries for joining forces on an outstanding issue and organizing this promising event. Here, first, let me emphasize that as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a founding member of the Impact Investing Advisory Board of Turkey, we are pleased to work together under Turkey's MIKTA chairmanship. I believe that this initiative bears a great potential for us to further contribute to the global efforts towards sustainable development, which is also a standing priority area for MIKTA. We see impact investment as an indispensable tool for achieving sustainable development goals. This event will present a unique opportunity to exchange information and insights on initiatives of MIKTA countries regarding impact investing. As the distinguished panelists will shortly be speaking on the place of impact investment in the current global context and additional opportunities, of course, for cooperation in this field, let me make first a few points on MIKTA and our vision as the chair. As you might be aware, it has been 10 years since the idea of MIKTA was first agreed upon at the Los Cabos, Mexico, at the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting. Basically, with a view to play a constructive role on the matters that affect all. You know, our world has faced multiple overlapping crises since then, especially during last 2 years, such as COVID-19 pandemic, armed conflicts, and extreme weather events. When we took over MIKTA chairmanship last March, as Ms. Shafak Hanım already mentioned, we picked up a number of these challenges: global health, effective migration management, and food security as our chairmanship priorities. In line with our chairmanship priorities, also the enduring cooperation areas of MIKTA, we have put together an ambitious program of work. Thanks to the valuable support of our fellow partners in MIKTA countries, we have been able to fully implement it so far. We held 2 foreign ministers meetings, one in Bali in July, on the sidelines of G20 Foreign Ministerial, and the other in New York during the UN General Assembly. We have an intense communication with the senior officials also at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The first ever MIKTA Leaders Gathering was held on 15 November during the G20 Summit in Bali. Overall, we have carried out nearly 70 activities at the main international platforms. We have issued 20 joint statements on various outstanding issues, sometimes on climate exchange, sometimes on investment, sometimes trade and economy. And I hope that the next one will be in impact investing. Today's event presents another really a very good example of such interactions, which deserves particular attention. I think also that this initiative has also been quite timely, as we have recently witnessed serious setbacks of the development gains, especially sustainable development goals, unfortunately, especially in developing countries. As MIKTA aspires to bridge the divides between developed and developing countries, I am confident that this new path for cooperation among our countries will at the same time contribute to the global impact investment ecosystem. With these thoughts, I will now end my remarks here. And I'm sure that you will have a very lively discussions. Thank you again to all the organizers and for all the participants today who contributed to the report, of course. I wish you a successful discussions. We hope that the relevant GSG stakeholders of MIKTA countries will continue to work together on impact investment in the period ahead. Thank you very much for your patience, and I wish you all good luck and lots of success. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Ms. Altu, thanks a lot for your encouraging comments and the information that you have provided. Now I would like to leave the floor to the GSG Chief Policy Officer, Sebastian. The floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Honor Shafak, Your Excellency, Ambassador Alto. It's a pleasure to meet you and to be sharing with you all today. I will start by making a confession. This week, by coincidence, I'm not in my home country of Argentina, where our team is based in Buenos Aires. I am in London, and guess what? In a city that never has sun, today it's pure sun. So I have a ray of light pointing directly to my face. So that's why you see me like this. Massive apologies. I was trying to escape from the sun in London. Unheard of, right? I mean, it's never been a problem, but only today. I think it's a good signal that the sun is shining for this discussion and for the MIKTA efforts. So we'll take that as a blessing, if I may. It's a nice coincidence. So you see me a bit blurred today, but it's me. Well, so I mean, I have to praise the efforts of all these wonderful leaders across the different MIKTA countries organized around the GSG National Advisory Boards, especially our friends from Turkey, for getting us together, for putting this opportunity on the table for us, and all for the rest of the countries for responding. I don't want to. I want to go straight to the dialogue. We have these wonderful colleagues from all the countries, and it was really encouraged to hear Her Excellency's remarks around the crucial role that impact capital and private capital is called to play to deliver on our joint aspirations for development, socially and in environmental terms. And I think we all came to the agreement and understanding globally and in the MIKTA countries that no public budgets alone will ever be enough to respond to the daunting challenges ahead of us, and that private capital together, working together with government, has a key role to play. So we have a challenge in terms of how we can mobilize more and more effectively private impact capital to respond to the social and environmental agenda, and also challenges in the field of how we can make that mobilization more transparent, more truly impactful. So you will see in this report we prepared all together elements that have to do with one or the other thing, or mobilization and what we would call impact transparency. I don't want to deep dive on that because you will be able to read it. I would like to go around the room and also appreciating that, Caro, for you, probably in Mexico, it's the middle of the night, and for some others, it would be very late at night. So it is great to be able to coincide. I would like to start with my very good friend Professor Chul Moon from Korea. Chul, we've been working together for quite a few years now in Korea, thanks to you and your colleagues and other stakeholders. The impact investment movement has been growing. What would you say in 1-2 minutes about the current state of impact investment in Korea before we double click on a few aspects?
Yes. Thank you, Seb, and thank you, Ambassador Artuk and Safak and Onur of TurkishNet for providing this great opportunity to share ideas and exchange opinions amongst MIKTA countries. And I'm privileged to share some of my thoughts as chair of Korea National Advisory Board for Impact Investing. And before responding to Seb's question to me about Korean status, I'd like to applaud and appreciate Ambassador Artuk's comment that impact investing will become the theme for the current MIKTA discussions in coming venues. And I think that will make a very important international influence, or including Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as they are now eager to embody impact investing vehicles into their overseas aid operations, grants and aid operations. So I'm seeing this as a good opportunity for me representing Korea impact investing ecosystem as chair of Korea NAP to address Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs from more international platform perspective. And I think this is a very important step forward for us to move the dialogue with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Korea. Now, I'm just waiting for one important symposium in January with one former presidential candidate, now Korean congressman, and that is hosted and organized by Ministry of Foreign Affairs of South Korea. And the issue is how best to utilize private capital for financing overseas AIDS operations of Korean government for non-recourseable, meaning non-returnable investing activities, which so far has been done by our government agency called KOICA. I'm sure some of you might have heard of it. And so I'm going to emphasize I am asked to make a presentation to the congressman and to the Director General of Ministry of Foreign Affairs in that forum. And I'd like to emphasize that impact investing vehicle in overseas AIDS operations is well supported, hopefully, by MIKTA platform as well, as has been evidenced by today's meeting that we are having. Now, going to Seb's question about the current status of South Korean ecosystem of impact investing and the opportunities and the policy needs, I'd like to emphasize a few things. Now, the Korea has set out quite recently to become a net zero country towards 2030, become the target year for reducing carbon emissions by 40%. Baseline year becomes 2018. And people are supporting it. Some other people are criticizing it because it is very difficult to achieve. While there is to go or not to go, easy or not easy discussion, the mandate by Korean government has already been made, and we don't know how fast we can go, but we know the direction is set. So Korean government is determined to implement the decarbonizing path for next few decades. And because we have pledged our NDC, nationally determined contribution for carbon emission, we are now trying to figure out how to finance that decarbonization strategy of South Korean government. And Korean government, with the support from Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Strategy, have decided that they are going to utilize ESG investing and impact investing as a way to incorporate private capital into this decarbonization policy path for coming years. And that's a huge, huge opportunity for private sector impact investors of South Korea. In at least two ways, we see government-funded impact capitals will be coming in the forms of, for instance, fund of funds, or in the forms of venture investing vehicles. For instance, we are trying to set up some funds through Ministry of SMEs, fund of funds structures, so that impact ventures who are working on carbon capture technology or green technologies can receive starting funds. And that will make a very substantial support for the decarbonizing path for many of these Korean companies and plus overseas companies, because we are so much manufacturing driven so far. Now, that's one thing that we are going to work on. The other thing, opportunity-wise, is that the issue of just transition. Many people are nowadays talking about just transitions. How do we care about those people and the manufacturing sectors or service sectors that are left behind or negatively affected in the process of decarbonization? We are emphasizing that issue as policy agenda, and Korean impact ecosystem is very delighted to see some private sector movements and public sector movements that are emphasizing the needs for funding, impact investing funding and ESG funding for these just transition activities. And
Joel, can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt you there? Because you touched on many important things. I would like to come back to some of them, but I took away a very clear strategy to engage more private capital across asset classes and with different tools. You touched on venture, you touched on fund of funds, wholesalers, focus on SMEs, and on the importance of this just transition, the decarbonization that leaves no one behind. I would like to, because we don't have indefinite time, I would like to go around the room and hear for everyone. And maybe if we have time, I will double click on your efforts on the side of transparency. Jewel, apologies, but I would like to move to David. Hi, David. Thank you for joining from Australia. Beyond telling us what's going on in the country, I would like you to specifically touch on the mobilization space, something that Jewel left there hanging. We know that in Australia there have been and there are active efforts to set up what we would call an impact capital wholesaler or a fund of funds. How important do you think it's this? What are the messages for other countries or anything else you would like to share?
Yeah, thanks very much, Seb, and good evening, good morning, everyone. I too would like to echo the thanks to Ambassador Artug and to the Turkish National Advisory Board for convening the discussion today. I think it's a very valuable one, and as a relative newcomer to the group, I've recently taken on the role as CEO of the Australian National Advisory Board. I'm delighted to be taking part. In answer to your question, Seb, I think the big development in Australia in the last 6 to 9 months has been the election of a new national government, which has a very different disposition towards impact investing, a much more positive disposition, I would say. We had a national task force around social impact investing that reported in 2020 with a set of recommendations that really weren't adopted. But happily, the new government wrote to the task force a couple of months ago and has said, can you please revisit those recommendations for us and update them? And we've been working very hard in the last couple of months on that work. And in fact, tomorrow we are sending back to the Prime Minister, Mr. Albanese, the final recommendations. And first amongst those is an impact investing wholesaler. We met last week with the treasurer, who's the equivalent of the finance minister here, to run through the numbers. And while it is a tight fiscal environment, I think there are positive signs that the government is seriously considering a significant co-investment in an impact investing wholesaler alongside institutional funds in Australia, large institutional funds, banks and perhaps pension funds, who would be joining the government in that investment. And the wholesaler structure would be along the funds of funds idea. So supporting various intermediaries who in turn will invest directly in impact ventures. The wholesaler is one of a handful of recommendations. Another is an early stage impact venture or social enterprise foundation, similar to what has been implemented with Access in the UK. Again, something that assists early stage enterprises to kind of come into the pipeline, to come into the funnel. And, you know, if the architecture works as we hope, some of those will make their way into the larger scale wholesaler type investments. We've also, we'll put to the Prime Minister tomorrow a proposal for an outcomes fund where there is quite a bit of investment in rigorous payment by outcomes, but also measurement and metrics around those. And finally, a dedicated office of social impact investing within the Prime Minister's office that would help build the public capacity, the public policy capacity around implementing this new architecture. So I think in summary, there's been a little bit of frustration in the sector that there hasn't been more movement on this, but there is kind of renewed anticipation, can I say, that the new government is making positive noises, and that we're hopeful that in the first half of next year, we may see some significant announcements on that front. Just the last point I'll make before I hand back is just around the just transition. I think another aspect of this new government in Australia is that we're being much more engaged around our obligations in Oceania and the South Pacific, and looking to support impact ventures who are addressing climate and other challenges in the smaller island countries of the South Pacific, which are very directly affected by rising sea levels and the like. So that is another area where we should watch this space. And I'll hand it back to you there, Seb.
Thank you, David, so much. Well, congrats again for your appointment as CEO of the group in Australia, and it sounds very encouraging that the government is coming to the impact movement to keep engaging. The priorities you set out are 100% in line with the global trends on mobilization, on scaling, and this focus on outcomes-based contracting is probably one of the most powerful things that governments should embrace increasingly. We live in a probably in most of the countries in an inputs-based culture of public spending, and we judge the effectiveness of government on how much money or which percentage of the public spending they devoted to education or health, but we know very little about the actual impact or the results delivered by that spending. I think it's a very powerful call to increase transparency in the public sector and to link it to very concrete metrics. So congrats on that, and you count with us at the GSG and with all the colleagues around the world to keep advancing that agenda together. I would like to move to a different angle. I will look to Caro in Mexico, and just let's cover a different part of the spectrum. Caro, you are a communications expert amongst other things, and sometimes we need to find a way to speak about these things that may sound a bit too technocratic, a bit too complex, especially when we approach governments, right? I mean, we need to link them to the actual issues we are trying to solve, because sometimes talking about an outcomes fund or a fund of funds, it will mean little to a Minister of Education. They would care about how to improve education outcomes, for example. So where do you think the efforts in terms of narrative and building this story in Mexico, what role is ENAP playing through your leadership? And in particular, something that hasn't come up that strongly now, we know that in Mexico, you pay a lot of attention to the impact entrepreneur as a key stakeholder in driving these efforts. So what can you tell us about the narrative and the role specifically of impact entrepreneurship?
Thank you, Seb. Thank you, Ambassador and dear colleagues. Sorry, I couldn't manage to find a way that my fund would work. You see, so it's better to have none. And thank you for the question. For us, it's very important the narrative part, because first of all, we need to explain that ESG is different from impact. So here, most of the financial organizations are started to focus on ESG, and they think that impact is something that has to be with philanthropy. So we need to raise the awareness about what impact is. So we are starting from there. Even though we've been discussing impact investing from over 13 years or more, and the NAV is in Mexico since 2015. There is a long way to go still, but we're getting there. So for us, it's very important that the financial sector start to look at impact investing as a solution for their problems, or for the way they are trying to do things well. So it's an opportunity for them. So we are very excited that we had a summit last September, and we have like 60% from financial sector attending, and very high level, and they are very eager to get involved in this movement. So for us, it's a success, and I think that we have to continue focusing on how do we get a better narrative, and we are also working with the GSG, so globally, to get like a global vision that we can adapt in the different countries. And about the impact entrepreneurs in Mexico, there's a long way working with that. And I think that's why the NAV started focus on financial sector, because we've been working hand in hand with the entrepreneurs. And here, I think that there is not only in Mexico, but Latin America, we have huge opportunities for entrepreneurship, and the public sector in different countries are eager to work with them. And for us, the private sector now in Mexico is working to get more involved with this. With these entrepreneurs, and I think it's getting better and better. And since we have this, the money from the gap from the SDGs is coming from Europe and the United States, but the problems are in Latin America, in Africa, and our entrepreneurs are the people that are finding the solutions. So their innovations are amazing. So we are very proud of our entrepreneurship like spirit.
Amazing, Caro. Thank you for sharing. And you make a very good point, right? I mean, the entrepreneur as being the stakeholder closest to the ground, closest to the communities. And I will add, as a fellow, Latin American and working a lot in our region, and probably this is true as well in Indonesia. We'll hear from Romy now, and also in Turkey. What we call the impact entrepreneur, the social entrepreneur, at least in a region like Latin America, is typically someone that comes from the center of those problems. They emerge from the communities. They embody the problems they want to solve. So that's quite interesting, probably a bit different to what we would call an impact entrepreneur in the US or the UK or Japan. So it's good that the private sector is reacting and adapting products to the realities of that sector, where at least in our region, for example, economic informality prevails, with a vast majority of the labor force, but also of the companies being in the informal economy. So loads to learn from that experience as well, Caro. Thank you. I will now turn to Romy. Thank you so much for joining as well from our Indonesia arm. And Romy, beyond telling us in a few minutes, what do you see emerging as the main developments in Indonesia? You're one of the newest countries of the GSG, and one of the things you're working on now with Patricia and the rest of the colleagues in the country is to put together a group for advocacy and for joint, so what we would call the National Advisory Board in the GSG. How important, so how is that going? And how important do you feel that coming together as a unified voice for the impact sector is, at least when talking to your government and to your investors and to wider market players in Indonesia?
Thank you, Sebastian, for the questions. Yeah, that's the question is spot on actually, because when we start the discussion, I think mid last year during the pandemic actually, the discussion came from different angles and different stakeholders, and everyone who had been involved in the discussion are coming from our own interest actually. So for example, some of us are the impact investors themselves, like Patricia, for example, and also our friend from Patamar Capital, and a few others investors operating in the country, saying that, look guys, we have been operating in the country for a few years now, and it's totally fine when we are investing in $1 million and above, but below that we have problems. And we heard similar things, but from the other angle, and these are our friends representing the entrepreneurs themselves, the impact entrepreneurs themselves, our friends who have been the intermediaries, an angel investment network, for example, who is operating here, saying the same thing, while they are trying to meet and finding investment and talk to these impact investors, they could not find good deals. So this is why we came about actually, and I think it's a very strong why, a strong purpose, because we realized that this could not be solved alone by any single organization, each of us. In terms of the development in the country, the government, there are several ministries at the directors level who are fully aware about impact investment, about social entrepreneurship. Our main contact at the moment is with the Ministry of National Development Planning. We thought this is a good place to engage, because this ministry is responsible for overall development programs of the government, regardless of changes in the regime. And we also find good signals from the practitioners, and by practitioners here I mean mainstream investors, doesn't have to be impact investors, those who are quite keen actually to learn about what actually impact investment is. So they have been operating in the country for decades, but now they are really interested to also join the forces with us to practice impact investment. So I think overall it's a good sign for us here in Indonesia, and our key step would be to bring together these different forces, different angles and stakeholders to come up with a strong action plan, hopefully early next year, Seb. I'll stop there, I think. Thank you.
Wonderful. No, thank you, and thank you for acknowledging the value of concerted action and coming together as representatives of the industry. I'm looking around the room, and Australia has been in the GSG from day one, from the days of the Social Impact Investment Task Force in 2013. So they can be a testament of how important it is to come together as an influence group. That 8, 9 years, 10 years down the line, the government is acknowledging the role of that National Advisory Board and inviting them to be part of the discussion. Caro as well said, they were generation 2 of the GSG in a way from 2015. And if there is one country that we are super pleased with and surprised, and we are a big fan of, is of Turkey. And I will go to Shafak now. EYBK in basically it's less than a year since you joined the GSG. You brought loads of energy, of leadership, and you're really an example to the rest of our network. So you can be a living testament to the power of that concerted action. So as we go to Shafak, beyond sharing and closing this discussion before we go to honor for the formal closure, there are many things that I would like you to say in the next few minutes, Shafak. But I think it will be particularly rich for the rest of the group to hear about your work in Turkey, but also your vocation for the country to become a regional hub for impact. What you're doing to bring in more players from the venture philanthropy side to enlarge the role of blended finance, and in particular something that I think is quite specific to Turkey, but can be an example to the wider region. Is I would like personally to learn a lot more about why are you focusing on Islamic finance, and what can impact investment bring to Islamic finance. It's a region that or an area that we haven't really explored that well so far in all of these years, and we think it has massive potential for growth. So sorry, I threw to you too many things, different, but you're great, and you will be able to eliminate us across that line.
So I guess the question comes to me, Seb. Or to
100%, no, 100% to you. Sorry, it wasn't clear. Yeah, it's to you.
Okay, so yeah, we started from ground zero, to be honest. It's been 3 years. It dates back to 2019. We started with nothing at all. So what Carolina has stated about raising awareness and to put the terms and concepts in the right drawers, if I may say, is very important, because there's a great mix-up, and there are, when you look into the sustainable investment spectrum, there's a big confusion between CSR, responsible investment, ESG, impact investing, and what is it? That's the question. And when you look into the scene, in the global scene now, there is a great discussion between the distinction of ESG and impact investment. And as Carolina put, again, I will go back to her because it's a very important point. And it seems that as the members of GSG, this is something we are going to be championing this year, to make the people and institutions understand what the distinction is between ESG and impact investing as a concept, which is very important. So we've started from ground zero, started to communicate what impact investing is, what the tools are, the instruments are, what the concept tells us. And of course, networking was another thing, which is very important. Over the years, as an individual, I have been in international, training programs, conferences, and Turkey was not present in the global settings, in these settings, to present herself, her policy in impact investing. Up until EYDK was established, the Turkish National Advisory Board was established. So if you want to sit at the global scene, the global table, you have to be a part of the global network. And that's what we did as Turkey, as a country. So that's why we wanted to become a member to GSG. And the moment we started to communicate with GSG, it was obvious, GSG was always very open to share the references, networks, networking, and the experience as well. And we are so happy today to be here to present our first joint international report together. And we have come come, I will not say a long way, but we have managed to put things into order. First of all, the concept, the awareness for impact investing. It's known now in Turkey. Another thing is the instruments. For instance, the first impact fund has been launched in June this year. We are now working on the first social impact bond, which is expected to be launched in February, for instance. And coming back to your question, your specific question about in Islamic finance. So what's the connection between Islamic finance and impact investment? So many references are telling us, one of it is the OECD report. There is a $2 trillion budget of Islamic finance awaiting as a potential to be used, to be connected to impact investment, as the value sets of impact investing and Islamic finance are very much similar to each other. And this means solving social and environmental problems through sukuk, for instance, by doing sukuk, like the bonds for bonds according to Islamic finance. And it started to happen. The first green sukuk is going to be actually has been launched recently by a bank in Turkey, and another one is just signed by the greater municipality of Konya. Konya is a city in the very middle of Turkey. It's actually our biggest city in Turkey, and the municipality, it's the first of its kind in the world. Municipality has signed with the in other institutions to have a green sukuk as a municipality. So another thing is we are going to be presenting the SDG impact standards soon in February, and we are going to have a training of trainers program to be done in February soon. And what else? I mean, these things are coming in my mind in the first instance. I don't know if I have answered your question.
In fact, very nicely, and very nicely, and
just wanted to give you just wanted to give you some real examples. You know, of course, we have lots on our plate. And it's great that another thing, for instance, we had a climate summit in February, and the climate law is going to be ready soon. So we were invited to these commissions for the climate summit, so that the notion of impact investing, social impact, environmental impact, impact measurement and management could be embedded into the manifesto of this climate summit, and then to the climate law. This is something as well. Another thing, in 2 weeks' time, I will be in Ankara attending the 12th development plan for the meetings for the 12th development plan of the Turkish Republic to be discussed among many institutions. So we will be there as the Turkish National Advisory Board to present our thoughts, what needs to be done to get impact investing as a notion, as a concept, to be embedded into the policies. That's another thing. It's happening. The ball just started.
It's happening. A lot has to do with the drive and the effort of the NAB. You gave us a good panorama. We don't have much time left. We have actually a minute before Onur closes us off. And if you promise to behave, I would like to do a final dynamic. If you promise to respond in 5 seconds, I will go around the room and ask each of you to share what is your top priority for the coming 12 months. The one thing that you will fight for, that you think will have the most transformational effect in the impact ecosystem of your country. David, what do you pick?
For Australia, I think it is securing an impact investing wholesaler, and we'll know on the first Tuesday of May.
Amazing, great, good priority, very concrete. Chul, in Korea?
I would say it will be climate impact fund to be created by Korean government and supported by private capital.
Amazing, very concrete aspiration and very consistent with what you shared. Thank you. Romy, in Indonesia?
It would be a blended finance facility for early stage impact investing.
Good, very good, very concrete. I like it. Caro, Mexico? You're muted, sorry.
Sorry. For us will be aligning the concepts and narrative, giving awareness to the society.
It will be very important for the rest of the Latin American region as well. And Safak, after all the very ambitious agenda you shared, what would you say in 12 months when we get together again and we'll be proud to say that we achieved what?
Do you want only one thing?
I want only one thing.
Okay, I think the top priority will be is going to be Islamic finance to be linked to impact investing. That will be a good case study, I think.
Brilliant, brilliant. Sounds amazing. So now, Onur, thank you again for getting us together. Thank you to the authorities and the team of the ambassador. And please close us off. And it's been a pleasure to share this session with you all.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Seb. That pleasure was all ours. And, you know, we will make this thing work, especially with the MIKTA desk that we are committing to as the Turkish National Advisory Board. And I already heard some suggestions from Carolina before we started. So I'm already super excited about, proceeding and strengthening our 5-country cooperation. Thanks a lot for listening, and thanks a lot to our valuable ambassador Miss Altuğ and their representatives from the Foreign Ministry of Turkey. Have a nice day or evening or a morning wherever you are in the world.